We also have some new reporting from NBC News that the NYPD is assisting Capitol Police in a request to see if any NYPD officers participated in the storming at the Capitol. This is according to a senior law enforcement official. They stress there's no specific information that officers did in fact participate, but they are investigating. The FBI also pouring over 40,000 tips already, and they need more. Here's a tweet from a short while ago asking for help identifying people in several of the photos that you see up in that wall there. Some former police and armed service veterans are among those who have now self-identified as being at the riot. And the New York Fire Department says it reported a number of its members being there to investigators as well. The FBI confirms it's reviewing tips about one-time mayoral candidate from Midland, Texas, Jenny Cudd. She posted a video bragging about patriots breaking into Pelosi's office. The Justice Department is saying several of the men seen in viral photos from the attack are now facing charges, including Adam Johnson, the 36-year-old who they say was carrying the Speaker of the House's lectern. The DOJ says Richard Barnett from Arkansas is the man seen with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk as well. You see that picture there. And that Jacob Chansley from Arizona was seen wearing horns, a bearskin headdress, and face paint. A lot of us have seen that photo so far. Then there's Derek Evans, a recently elected West Virginia lawmaker. He is facing charges after live streaming himself entering the Capitol. Data from Capitol Police and the FBI shows more than 75 people are facing charges so far. By the way, that's not enough. To discuss, want to bring in Ben Collins, who covers disinformation, extremism, and the internet for NBC News. And Harry Litman, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General during the Clinton administration. He's now the host of the Talking Feds podcast and a legal affairs columnist at the LA Times. Welcome to you both, guys. Really appreciate it. Ben, I'm going to start with you on this one because I find it fascinating, right, that you see a lot of these people, these rioters, these insurrectionists, posting selfies of themselves, live streaming the things that they were doing as if they felt like either they weren't going to be held accountable or they wanted to be congratulated and applauded for putting people's lives at risk and subsequently lives being lost.
Yeah, I think an important thing to understand here is that there were two different kinds of people at this rally. There were Proud Boys, militiamen, Oath Keepers who stormed to the front with the idea that they would, wreak havoc, cause violence, maybe arrest, maybe kill some lawmakers. That was the point for those people. Other people, if you're in the QAnon world, in that universe, you thought you were going into the Capitol and you were storming it for Donald Trump. You thought you were receiving orders from him once you got inside the Capitol. And that's what was happening with a lot of those QAnon people. They were in there waiting for more orders. The guy with the zip ties, there were posts for weeks beforehand in the QAnon world about arresting these lawmakers and then bringing them to justice on behalf of Donald Trump. And they explicitly talked about zip ties. They were makeshift handcuffs for the lawmakers if they got to the right part of the Capitol. I don't think people understand how close we were here. This was close to a mass casualty event involving members of Congress. And it's incredibly dangerous. That's what people are talking about. In QAnon, there's this thing called the Great Awakening. And in the Great Awakening, all of the lawmakers are arrested, rounded up, and executed in a public forum. And that's what this was to a lot of these people. They thought that this was about to happen.
That's really disturbing to hear. One of the things that I found was also kind of disturbing was hearing so many folks say the only person, Ben, that can call these people off, that can call these rioters off, is the President of the United States. Just as you said, making that connection that they were waiting for their next orders. And in fact, when that kind of call came through, when they had those loudspeakers on the Capitol Hill steps and the president said essentially, go home in a way, but I love you, they did begin to retreat.
Yeah, and I do want to make clear, too, that may not even be true in the future. A lot of these people, after that speech that Donald Trump gave that was, in the middle of the night that was put out on Twitter, where he said we have to, he basically conceded the election, but he didn't really. A lot of these people said, all right, well, turns out Donald Trump was the false prophet. we have to do something about all these baby killers in office. The QAnon people believe that they're killing children. So they sort of discarded Donald Trump. I don't know if you can put the cat back in the bag here at this point. Maybe you could have on the day of this insurrection, but now this may be a movement that is totally separate of Donald Trump. It's a movement based on insurrection and a civil war.
So I guess, Harry, my big question here is the government taking this seriously enough? Are they ready and prepared for the threats that may be before him when you're talking about civil war? And by the way, I certainly heard that said to me over and over again, and that this may be heading towards a civil war from these militia group members that were out front of the Capitol. I mean, you think about a recent report from DHS from October 2020, warning that violent white supremacy was the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland. Also from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, saying the majority of 2020 terror attacks were from white supremacists, 67% from January to October.
No doubt about it. Yes, this is not in terms of intel and the federal government, nothing new here. They're known to be deadly dangerous. There's some sense that it was a ragtag mob. As Ben says, nothing further from the truth. These are crazed insurrectionists with bizarre constitutional views. But this is what the federal government does best, is target whole groups and hopefully bring them down. And here you have to imagine that the president put out the call on December 30th. It's going to be wild. Come to the Stop the Steal party. And they came. And yes, there have only been several dozen arrests. There will be many, many more. These are placeholders. None of this is going to tie the hands of the incoming administration and Merrick Garland. This, in fact, it's a terrible, sobering event, but it actually will give a sort of opportunity to really go after them as a group. It strikes me as plausible. Ben would know better. But with some of these groups, the near entire leadership was present. They committed serious crimes. It might be an opportunity to decapitate them the way the government has done before with the Medellin conspiracy or the Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. This is something that I was talking about in our editorial call earlier this morning, especially talking about ISIS, right? We have these lone wolf attacks that we've had over the last couple of years, but a lot of the government has focused on kind of, going after the top, the head, the Abu Bakr al-Baghdadis of the world, the folks that are the people that are trying to inspire these attacks, to inspire these murders across the world. And now we're seeing this domestic terrorism attack. And so, Ben, just quickly to you on this. Is there a way, do they have a top? Do these militia groups, does QAnon, for instance, do they have a leader per se that the government can go after?
Some militia groups have defined leaders, with the Proud Boys, it's Gavin McInnes and Enrique Tarrio. Enrique Tarrio was arrested before the rally with high-capacity magazines. So, he wasn't even there to lead these groups. But the point of a lot of these groups and conspiracies are two things. One, be as decentralized as possible. Once you start looking to one leader and that person is banned from the internet, it's hard to do anything from there on out. So they're trying to decentralize it. And two, play that sort of footsie with social media, where you go right up to the line of saying, go commit violence on this day, where instead you just give a day, or you say, do violence generally. So they know how to play rhetorical games with the law. So it's difficult, but it's possible. That's the hopeful thing here is I think we're going to look much further into the money that's behind this and a lot further into how the sausage is made here, I think.
And then we also have to have the conversation when it comes to the precedence of domestic terrorism in general and charging these people. Ben Collins, Harry Litman, thank you both. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
We're going to look at what Trump could do.